If you walk into a high-rise hotel in New York City, you'll probably see 10 and then 14 no more ketiga belas. The same thing happens in office towers in Chicago. No room ketiga belas in many apartment buildings across America. Not removed physically, just renamed, skipped, erased from sight. The space exists, only the symbol is missing. How did a simple number 1 that follows become something modern society still quietly avoids? No national vote removed 13. No scientific body declared it dangerous, and yet, across architecture and pop culture, the number was gradually pushed aside. But belief does not appear out of thin air. So, if 13 is feared today, then, somewhere in history, that fear was built. We have to go back thousands of years to a time when 13 was not cursed at all. Long before Christianity, before medieval Europe, ancient civilizations organized reality by what they saw. It waxed, waned, disappeared, and returned. There are approximately 13 full lunar cycles. To agricultural societies that depended on planting, that rhythm mattered. And in that rhythm, in a world without mechanical clocks or digital calendars, the sky was authority. Stepped inside the elevator and slowly watched the numbers light up. 11, 12. On certain airlines, there is no row 13. In some hospitals, the number simply disappears. And yet, the floor exists. The mathematics exist. That raises a strange and uncomfortable question. 12 and precedes 14. For something to be erased without discussion is powerful. No government issued a warning. Transportation, hospitality, it was not banned by law. It was erased by belief. It is constructed, reinforced, repeated, passed down. And to understand why America still skips a number in 2026, but sacred before skyscrapers and stock markets, looked up at the night sky, and the moon was one of humanity's first clocks over the course of one solar year. 13 moons, harvesting and predicting seasonal shifts. Time was not abstract. It was survival. 13 represented completion, renewal, the full dance of nature. And the sky counted to 13. Across Mesoamerica, the Maya civilization developed one of the most mathematically sophisticated calendar systems in the ancient world. Their sacred Tzolk'in calendar revolved around cycles of 30 numbers, combined with 20-day signs, producing a 260-day ritual calendar. 30, in their cosmology, was associated with layers of heaven, 13 levels of spiritual ascent. It was not unlucky. It was divine structure. It was order embedded in the cosmos. This was not superstition. It was systematic astronomical observation woven into spirituality. In parts of ancient Egypt, interpretations of funerary texts describe stages of transformation the soul passes through in the afterlife. Some esoteric readings suggest 12 stages of purification, followed by a 13th stage of transcendence. Whether literal or symbolic, the pattern appears again. 12 as process, 13 as completion, not destruction, fulfillment. Even in early European pagan traditions, 13 appeared in lunar festivals and feminine symbolism. A year contains approximately 13 menstrual cycles. For societies that revered fertility and nature, 13 held sacred feminine energy. It represented life cycles and regeneration. In those contexts, it was powerful, and power often becomes threatening when cultural control shifts. Because history is not just a timeline of events, it is a timeline of power transitions. When belief systems change, symbols change. What was once holy can become heretical. What was once centra can become taboo. And around the rise of Christian dominance in Europe, the number 13 began its transformation. The most cited origin of 13's bad reputation comes from the Last Supper. According to Christian tradition, 13 individuals sat at the table. Jesus and his 12 disciples. Judas, who betrayed Jesus, is often described in folklore as the 13th guest. Whether that detail is biblically emphasized or culturally amplified, the symbolism stuck. 13 at a table became an omen. In medieval Europe, it was considered dangerous for 13 people to dine together. One would supposedly die within the year. Fear spreads best through story, and this story spread widely. Then came Friday, October 13th, 1307. On that day, King Philip IV of France ordered the mass arrest of the Knights Templar, a powerful and wealthy religious military order. Hundreds were captured. Many were tortured. Leaders were executed. The event became infamous, and over centuries, it fused to already uneasy symbols. Friday associated with crucifixion, and the number 13. The phrase Friday the 13th began to carry weight, not because of statistical disaster, but because of narrative memory. Once a symbol is attached to trauma, it rarely shakes it off. Still, medieval superstition alone does not explain modern architectural decisions in America. For centuries, 13 existed alongside other superstitions without structural erasure. Something else reinforced it. Something far more influential in the modern psyche. Mass media. In 1980, the horror film Friday the 13th premiered in the United States. It was violent, memorable, and culturally explosive. The title alone embedded the superstition deeper into popular consciousness. Sequels followed. Merchandise followed. Generations grew up associating 13 not with lunar cycles or sacred calendars, but with masked killers and cinematic terror. Hollywood did not invent the fear. It branded it. And branding is powerful. By the mid-20th century, developers noticed something interesting. Tenants were less likely to purchase apartments labeled 13. Hotel guests requested different rooms. Airline passengers felt uneasy in row 13. It did not matter whether the fear was rational. What mattered was consumer comfort. In capitalist systems, perception shapes design. So the solution was simple. Remove the label. The physical structure remained intact, but the number disappeared. Elevators skipped it. Blueprints rebranded it. No announcement was made. It was a quiet concession to collective discomfort. Psychologists refer to the fear of the number 13 as Triskaidekaphobia. It falls under pattern-based superstition. Humans prefer symmetry. 12 feels complete. 12 months. 12 hours on a clock face. 12 zodiac signs. 12 jewelers. 12 inches in a foot. 12 divides evenly by 2, 3, 4, and 6. It is mathematically tidy. 13 disrupts that symmetry. It is prime. It refuses clean division, and the human brain, wired for pattern recognition, reacts negatively to broken symmetry. Over time, that discomfort morphs into narrative. Narrative becomes tradition. Tradition becomes design. Interestingly, not all cultures fear 13. In some regions, other numbers carry heavier superstition. Fear is culturally assigned, not mathematically inherent. That alone suggests that 13's reputation is constructed rather than discovered. Numbers do not emit energy. They do not cause accidents. They do not influence fate. But belief influences behavior, and behavior influences outcomes. Economists have observed measurable behavioral shifts on Friday the 13th in the United States. Some individuals postpone travel. Some delay investments. Some avoid major decisions. When millions subtly adjust behavior, economic ripples follow, not because 13 alters probability, but because psychology alters action. Fear does not need to be logical to be effective. It only needs to be shared. There's also a deeper historical hypothesis. Though debated, the transition from lunar-based calendars to solar-based calendars may have symbolically marginalized. 13. Solar calendars emphasize 12 months. Lunar systems highlight 13 cycles, When centralized religious and political authorities standardized timekeeping, older lunar symbolism faded. If 13 once represented older systems of authority, particularly feminine-centered or nature-centered systems, its demotion could reflect broader cultural restructuring. There is no concrete evidence of a coordinated campaign against the number, but history repeatedly shows that when power consolidates, competing symbols are often reframed negatively. What makes the story of 13 fascinating is not whether it is lucky or unlucky. It is how quietly society agreed to sideline it. There was no public debate, no academic consensus declaring it harmful. It simply became easier to remove than to challenge, and that decision reveals something about collective psychology. Humans would rather adjust architecture than confront inherited fear. Yet the irony remains. Every building that skips the 13th floor still structurally contains it. Stand inside floor 14 of a hotel that omits 13, and mathematically, you are on the 13th level. The superstition does not eliminate reality. It renames it. The avoidance is symbolic, not physical. Over time, some developers have reintroduced the number, particularly in modern luxury buildings where superstition is marketed as outdated. Others continue skipping it, calculating that even a small percentage of uneasy tenants justifies omission. In that sense, 13 becomes a case study in behavioral economics. It demonstrates how intangible belief shapes tangible infrastructure. The persistence of 13 stigma also reflects how narratives survive technological progress. Humanity can split the atom, map the genome, and send telescopes beyond the solar system, yet still hesitate at a number in an elevator. That contrast is not hypocrisy. It is humanity. We are rational and irrational simultaneously. We calculate probabilities while carrying inherited myths. If you strip away the stories, 13 is simply the integer that follows 12. In mathematics, it is prime indivisible except by 1 and itself. In some interpretations, that indivisibility could symbolize strength rather than misfortune. In tarot symbolism, the 13th card represents death, not literal demise, but transformation and rebirth. Even within systems that appear ominous, 13 often signals transition rather than doom. Perhaps that is the thread connecting its ancient and modern identities. In early civilizations, 13 marked completion and renewal. In medieval Christianity, it marked betrayal and upheaval. In psychology, it marks broken symmetry. In architecture, it marks avoidance. In economics, it marks hesitation. In each case, it represents disruption, a step beyond comfortable order. And disruption is rarely welcomed. The story of 13 ultimately says less about numbers and more about narrative inheritance. Humans are storytelling creatures. We embed meaning into neutral symbols and pass those meanings forward. Most of the time, we do it unconsciously. By the time we question them, they feel ancient and immovable. And yet, the fact that 13 can be skipped proves something powerful. Meaning is assigned, not inherent. The same number that once aligned with lunar cycles and divine heavens now sits absent from elevator panels in American skyscrapers. It was sacred. It became feared. It was erased, not through evidence, but through repetition. So the next time you stand in an elevator and notice the jump from 12 to impossible, pause for a moment. You are witnessing centuries of layered narrative condensed into a small, illuminated button. You are seeing medieval folklore, religious symbolism, horror, cinema, behavioral economics, and architectural marketing intersect in a single quiet omission. The number is still there. The floor still exists. The universe continues its cycles, 13 moons each year. Regardless of whether we acknowledge them, the question is not whether 13 is lucky or unlucky. The question is why we continue to negotiate with symbols we intellectually no hold, no power. Maybe 13 was never cursed. Maybe it was simply different. And history shows that what Divra often becomes feared before it becomes understood. In the end, the number they tried to erase was never truly removed. It lingers between 12 and 14, a silent reminder that belief can shape buildings, markets, and minds. And if a number can be transformed so completely across centuries, it invites a deeper reflection. What other inherited fears are we still carrying, quietly redesigning our world around, without ever stopping to ask why?